Hello, everyone. Yeah, I can see your comments. Nice. Nice. Many people are entering. Hello, hello. Let me know from where are you coming. I'm live from Strasbourg. The rest of you? Switzerland. Nice. More Strasbourg. Toulouse, Paris. Nice. Okay, still people entering to the room, so we will wait a few minutes before starting. Zurich, amazing. Mulhouse. Okay, nice. Okay. I think right now the number is approximately stabilized, so we can start. So just a moment to figure out my screen. Perfect. So hello everyone and welcome to the 5th BioTechno Grantees Plenary Conference, Current and Future Trends in Biotechnology. Thank you for joining this webinar today. My name is Dimitra and I will be the moderator today. So as you know, BioTechno Grantees belongs to the French National Biotechno Network, which gathers 19 PhD and young researcher associations in France. The grantees team is supported by 3 associations from University of Strasbourg, ADAL, SPB, and Strasser. This year, Paris and Strasbourg will be the host cities of BioTechno forums. I will close my camera in order to be more obvious your slide for you. So, as you can see, the BioTechno Grantees Forum was originally planned to take place in the 17th of June, but due to the current COVID-19 situation, the forum had changed format to online. So the forum has been transformed into a mini forum with a series of webinars, which includes plenary conferences, workshops, roundtables, panel discussions, and interviews and emulations. After this webinar, we have 4 more roundtables, 1 workshop, and 1 plenary conference. And if you want to find more information, please click on the booklet that is already available at the chat. For better connection, an Ethernet cable is advised, and for better quality, the platform recommends Google Chrome as a browser. If you have any problems for hearing me or our speaker, please just refresh your page before asking our team to help you with the chat. So, if this is your first time using BigMarker platform, I will give you a small tutorial about how to interact with us. So on the right part of the screen, you will find a panel with different tabs. Chat is one of them. Use it if you want to comment or to interact with other participants during the webinar. If you want to ask our speaker a question, please use the question answer tab. It's exactly next to the chat. And once the question is solved, it will disappear from the main question tab and will be archived in the answer session. Also, I would like to tell you that apart from addressing your own question, you can vote the questions of other attendees. So I will read the question with the most votes, and the speaker will reply to them. Last but not least, we have in the end of the webinar, we will have some polls with a small survey, and we would like to give us feedback in order to know how to improve future webinars. So today's speaker is Philip Hemme, a young French-German biotech entrepreneur, which is the co-founder of biotech.eu, a well-known European digital media platform for biotech. The company was founded in Berlin in September 2014, and that happens exactly 5 days after the graduation of Philip. So I'm really interested to learn more about that. Philip has been invited to many events, and in order to share his passion in biotechnology and entrepreneurship. He loves German beer and French wine, as he says. So in this webinar, we will talk about the birth of biotech, what is the biggest biotech companies in Europe, and how France is positioned. We will talk about the biotech trends that in these days, and how PhD students can land to a job related to biotechnology after finishing their PhDs. So I will be, as I told before, the moderator, but my colleague Annabella will be in the platform support, and my colleague Philippa will be in the chat to help you to and reply to all your questions. So without further delay, I would like to welcome our speaker, Philippe, please. Nice, we can see you. Hello. So we're really happy to have you here today. Would you like to tell us a bit more about you? Because I gave just a short description, but I'm sorry, I forgot my camera. Yeah, I gave just a small description about you, but you can tell us more about your career path.
Sure. Thanks for having me first. It's glad to be virtually in Strasbourg. I like to see you a lot. And yeah, good job for putting it together, for putting the event. I think it's a very important event for PhDs and academics in general. And I'm always happy to help. I was at the forum in Paris and now Strasbourg. That's good. You already mentioned the topics we'll talk about, so I don't need to repeat that. And I think what I like always with conferences, especially those ones, and as we have a lot of time for Q&A, is really having more discussion than me talking. And so I saw in the chat, we have a lot of people connected, and the chat system looks really good. So let's use it. I think just ask all the questions you have. There's no stupid question. Don't be shy. I don't see you, and no one sees you, so you should be even less shy. And then, I think we have 1.5 hours. Just use your time at best and my time at best as well. And then just let's enjoy the time.
Yeah. Up to now, they used to be really talkative, I could say, all our audience. So good luck to you. You will need to reply a lot of questions.
Happy. I'm here for that.
Perfect.
And I will present myself in the first slide.
Sure. Okay. So
if you load my slides.
Start your presentation. Yeah, sure. I'm loading with your slides. Sorry. It's that one. No, wrong slides. Okay, here it is. So I'm closing your camera, but I'm here in case you need anything.
Sounds good. Thank you. Cool. So this slide. So on who I am. So I'm Philip, as Dimitri said, and she presented me already quite a lot. But I'm French-German. Actually, I grew up in Paris, and my dad was a microbiome scientist at Enterome for his whole life. So. He told me about bacteria and microbiology since I'm like 5 or 6, got me infected with the virus. And so I always loved biology, and I've always been very entrepreneurial. And so I just love to build stuff and build and selling stuff since I'm 10 or 11. Started a few gigs and things on the side. And then I studied bioengineering. So it's a biotech. You can see the logo. So it's an engineering school in Paris or in Villejuif, post-bac. And to be honest with you, I didn't really know what biotech was about, but I liked engineering, I liked biology. It's post-bac. Why not trying it out 1 year and see? And I really loved it. The school is really good as well. And then I went to Boston University for my second year of master's. Was a kind of double diploma, and I did double diploma in business. And Boston is, I think you've heard of it, for biotech is just really amazing. It's kind of like the Silicon Valley, but for biotech. So I really loved the time there. And actually, around that time, I was also thinking a lot about if I wanted to do a PhD or not. It was a big question. When you study science, it's always this main question of how far do you want to go into science, and do you want to be a researcher or not? And I did some internships in the labs. Actually, I was at the IGM in Paris 7 in Paris. I was at Orsay in a really good lab. And so, but I really thought about it. But I had the feeling very early on that I would not do the research. I like application way too much, and I like to do something more applied to be in academic research. And And I love science. I just don't like to do it, as in like pipetting and all that stuff. And so very early on, I knew that even if I did a PhD, I would not like it that much. Also, the experience I've seen and the PhD climate in France, I mean, it's nice, but it's not the best country. I mean, it's not necessarily the best ecosystem to do a PhD, I would say, especially if you compare to Boston or MIT or stuff where it's a very different world. So this doesn't make me very keen to do a PhD. And at the end, I just thought, okay, I know I will not continue research, so maybe I can just do a double diploma and then go into the business side of biotech earlier on. And happy to expand on that. And basically then going back to Boston University, I finished my internship, my master thesis internship. And then 5 days later, I started La Biotech. And so I started as a for-profit because it started as a student project when we were, for the 2 last years of our master, with my co-founder, who was one of my best friends at uni. We just started this blog about biotech in France because we're just very frustrated ourselves on how we could read about the industry. It was mostly like paper magazine, super expensive or outdated. And so we just thought, let's do a blog. It was not meant to be a business. It was just maybe we would meet some people, a bit of networking, a bit of knowledge, and just finding an internship. But it turned out to be much bigger. And so we both moved to Berlin. And then the typical like digital startup, like unpaid for 18 months, trying to survive, eating a lot of pasta, working in cafes. We had like all the little revenues we were doing in advertising. We were investing it into an office, hiring a few interns, somehow trying to get users until we were able to raise and attract some investors, and then able to hire more people, paying ourselves as founders, and then growing the platform until now, as Dimitri mentioned, we are basically the biggest digital magazine or digital media for the biotech industry in Europe. There's 200,000 people reading us, actually a lot of academics as well, a lot of PhDs who wants to know what is the industry about. Content is accessible for free. You can subscribe to social media newsletter wherever you like. And I would tell more about it, but I think it's a very good resource for anyone in the biotech industry in Europe, but especially for someone, if you're interested in going into there, I think it's a very good resource. And basically now I am not operational anymore with La Biotech. I stepped down as CEO as my co-founder is continuing to running the company. I'm still on the board and I'm still shareholder, but I'm not like working day to day. And I am basically preparing my next company. And this is since June 2019 to basically September. I'm kind of in a pause where I'm traveling out. Dimitri, we mentioned it, but I was traveling out just to disconnect. 5 years of company building is really intense. So just disconnecting, resting, taking perspective, and very lucky that I did all of that before COVID. So I was in New Zealand when COVID came out, and I managed to come back to Paris. And then I did a lot of personal development. Happy to talk about that. It's one of my passions as well. But I think it's not the topic here. And then the third step, really preparing my next company. And the next company, I will build a life science company with a deep tech, with bio and biotech company, typically with a scientific co-founder somewhere in Europe. And it's pretty advanced so far, talking with a few co-founders. That could be interesting. All right, and so, Dimitri mentioned the topic. I will basically cover 3 areas. One is how big is biotech today, to give you a bit of an idea of what are we talking about when we talk about biotech, who are the players, what it is about, and then going into some detailed trends. So 9 biotech trends that should be watched closely, and I will then finish with some practical advice, at least the most important advices, which I've seen, which works really well for PhD students. And at the end, as I said, Q&A. I listed some questions just to give you some inspiration. We don't need to answer those. And then again, just ask everything you want. It's really the goal, I think. Ask any question you have. And if you have the question, probably a lot of other participants have it as well. And I'm just very happy to answer anything. All right, so let's get started. So how big is biotech today? So these guys this is the birth of biotech. Biotech sometimes is referred to cheese making and whatever. It was not called biotech, and that's not what really biotech is about. The word biotechnology came from biology and technology, and came in the 70s when we were able to clone DNA to clone plasmid and to produce something into bacteria. And so these two guys are the founders of Genentech, which is really the first successful biotech company in San Francisco. Now it's part of Roche, the big oncology and big pharma company in Basel. Has some like 15,000 employees, and it's really the biggest success story. And they really started on insulin, and so they tried to, instead of getting the insulin from porks, which we were crushing pork's organs to extract insulin and give it to humans. They thought, okay, we know the gene of insulin, so let's just put it into E. coli and produce insulin. And it actually worked. I mean, it was not that easy, but it worked. And so they really the birth of biotech. And it's a very cool story if you want. There's a book about it, Genentech, the beginning of biotech. I can highly, highly recommend it to you. It was a mandatory read for everyone joining our team because it's just a very good context on how it works. Also, here is a definition of what biotech is about. Biotech is kind of this a bit of buzzword which some people use just because it's more attractive. It's a bit like AI right now. Everyone uses AI, even though it's not AI. It's just bioinformatics, and people just say AI because it's more sexy. Biotech is a bit like this, and so the definition that we were using and the definition that I like a lot is this one. It comes from the BIO organization, which is the US biotech organization, biotech industry organization, and it's about curing, feeding, and fueling the world, because biotech is, by definition, kind of a platform technology, and then the application can go kind of genetic engineering, and then you have this vertical application, which are healthcare, curing cancer, antiviral, anti-COVID, whatever. Feeding, of course, GMOs, but it's what a lot of general public know, but it's not really the most, the biggest representative. And now you have all this cultured meat, a lot of things in the feeding space, and then fueling, all the biofuel and general replacing chemistry. And the split is curing is really the biggest part, over 60% easily, if not more, depending on the countries. And then industrial biotech is usually around somewhere around 20%, and feeding somewhere around between 10 and 20. And so here are some companies that are like some of the biggest companies in biotech. I think some of you must know some of them. Amgen is the biggest company in the world, biotech company. It's based close to Los Angeles, 30,000 employees, and they were really big into doing growth hormones. And so that's how they got big. And now they're also in oncology and a lot of spaces, but still independent company. And then the other ones I've mentioned are the biggest European biotech companies. Genmab is right now the biggest by market cap, so financial values over, I think there are 12 billion euros. They're doing monoclonal antibodies in oncology. The Danish company originally was a big site in the Netherlands as well. Galapagos is a really big one. It's in a bit everywhere, but headquartered in Belgium, but they have a big site in the Netherlands and also in Paris and in Basel, 5,000 employees. And then Novozymes, it's the biggest industrial biotech company, at least in the world. They're doing mostly everything about enzymes. And so every detergent, or most of the detergents used in the world, has some enzymes from Novozymes. It's really one of the success stories. And they're also really big into biofuel, into microbiome. I think they have over 10,000 employees and a very nice offices and headquarters in Copenhagen, or at least very close to Copenhagen. And the two others, Cellectis is a French biotech, probably one of the biggest ones. it's 20 years old, and now they are very focused they're focused on cell therapy for oncology. And initially they invented, or they commercialized talents, kind of the precursor of CRISPR. They're still using talent, but they're also doing CRISPR. But it's really a pure gene editing company at the beginning. And they were selling tools. They got almost bankrupt because of CRISPR, and then they turned around, and now they're really in oncology. And there was around $1 billion in Paris and New York. And then Idorsia is the founders of Actelion, which was the biggest company a biotech company in Europe, based in Basel, which Johnson & Johnson acquired for something like 29 billion, something like this. And the founders of Actelion took some of the drug in early discovery and spin it out and created a new company, that's Idorsia, and it's already a very big company. Anyway, I think it's just to give you a bit of an idea of who is doing what, and it's always good if you want to be in biotech to not only know the company you're applying for, but also knowing the space and what are people doing. Same as in academia, you don't want to know only what your lab is doing, you want to know what are people doing. If you're in a lab in epigenetics, what are the field of epigenetics doing in general? And so the context is always very important. Here, I pass you the details. It's just to tell you that investment in biotech is growing a lot. You can take investment, you can take revenues, you can take any financial metric. It's basically growing well. I mean, and it's still an industry that is from 1970s to today. So it's an industry that is not even 50 years old. So much, much younger than computers, for example, or information technology in general. This is a map. There's a link at the end. It's a map we have on our website. So if you go on La Biotech, you have a map button, and you can see all the biotech companies in Europe where they are. It's only biotech companies that are innovative, as in not doing only services, and who are at least 10 employees. So we filter out most of the noise, and it gives you an idea of where the companies are. If you look at the hotspots of biotech in Europe, it's not like in the US where everything is in Boston or in San Francisco, or most of it. In Europe, it's very spread out. So actually the biggest is probably Cambridge in the UK. Cambridge, Oxford is really big. Paris is actually big. It's just less visible because it's very diluted into the other industries. Belgium and Netherlands is surprisingly big. Switzerland is surprisingly big, especially in pharma, but also in biotech compared to the size of the country. And then Germany is big, but smaller. Actually, France and Germany in general is smaller in comparison to actually Switzerland, Netherlands, or Belgium. And then in the south, Italy and Spain, Portugal, it's growing, but it's still kind of it's really behind. Same for the east, Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia. There's stuff coming out, but really less. I forgot Austria, but Austria is really big too. And then in the Nordics, they're really big too. Especially Denmark is surprisingly big. So exportation of Denmark with Novo Nordisk, who's doing the biggest producer of insulin, is insane. I think it's something like 50% of the exportation of the country is products fermentation based. So basically biotech/biology processing. Anyway, you can have fun with it. It's free access. You can zoom everywhere. You can see where they are exactly. It's a good tool to use. About France, basically, as France, it's very centralized in Paris. So that's actually a map from France Biotech, and so it gives you a pretty good idea. Basically, in France, you have Paris, number one by quite far, and then Lyon, which is pretty big. And then kind of spread out, but then it's way less concentrated. Even Strasbourg, you have some companies, but it's way less than Lyon or Paris. So it's a good one in Strasbourg. You have DNA Cure, which is really good. They just raised within 3 years like 100 million, really proper company. Still Transgene was originally in Strasbourg, but they're always struggling quite a lot. And then a few others, but it's really less big. And here, just to give you a little trend, I think it's when you look at the growth of the biotech industry, and what's very interesting right now is that it's kind of merging with technology as in IT and software. And so, I mean, that's just a quote from Steve Jobs, but you have many other quotes like that. And in Silicon Valley right now, since 5 years, it's really hot. I will talk a bit about this trend, but really mixing the two approaches together, kind of having some hardcore bioinformatics to do personalized medicine or to do personalized cell therapy. And you start having like really something happening. And I think this will allow the potential of biotech to become much bigger. And we are really just at the beginning. I mean, we're in 2020 and the next 80 years will be crazy. Imagine CRISPR is 6 years old. I mean, it's crazy. Look at DNA invention. DNA, not DNA, Crick and Watson. It's really not that old. I mean, it's in the 60s. So it's crazy the pace it's moving forward, and I don't see how it will really slow down in the next 10 or 20 years, if not 50 years. So a very exciting time to be in the industry, and a lot of things ahead. And really, it's one of the industries where I think you have the biggest impact on society. At least I haven't found an industry that has much more. So if you talk about saving lives, fixing global warming, and making clean biofuels or transportation or clean chemistry, and making clean food, if you fix these three things, it's pretty big impact. And because it's a big impact, and because you create a lot of value, and it's things that people need, this develops the whole industry. Do you have any questions now, or you want to, or Dimitra, tell me, you want to take questions at each part, or you want to take all the questions at the end? Okay, well, I will just continue. I don't know where, I will just continue. So, and then moving to the trends. So I'm just exploring 9 biotech trends. Will not expand too much. If you have questions, specific question on some companies, I'm happy to expand. I'm happy to expand. So first trend is about messenger RNA therapeutics. You might have heard about it. It's really big now with COVID. So Moderna is an American company. BioNTech is German. CureVac is German as well. And it's really, it's one of these like next generation drug companies, and they're using messenger RNA coding for the protein or for the drug. And so instead of producing the drug and injecting it in patients, you are just delivering the information, and then the body produces the drug itself. And so it sounds science fiction, but it kind of works. They've shown early stage that the drugs are very well expressed, protein is expressed now, and now they're really coming in this year, next year, in the phase where they need to show in a phase 2B or in a clinical phase that the thing works in human. And COVID is actually a big chance for them. And why they are so big in COVID is that COVID speed matters a lot in vaccines. And the thing is, when you are just sending the information, it's like a piece of code. You're literally sending just letters. And so you can, it fasten your whole discovery process a lot versus you need to produce a protein that you need to express and find a system and whatever. mRNA is really fast for that. So that's why it's really big now. But it's also really big into when you think about personalized oncology and you want to create a drug. So you can create an mRNA drug for each patient individually on the go, which is really crazy. Trend number 2 is next generation of cell-based immunotherapies. So I think you've probably heard about CAR-T as well, which is it's insane. I mean, you're taking out the T cells of a cancer patient, you're engineering them genetically so it recognizes the tumor and re-injecting them, and then the T cells destroy the tumor, especially in liquid liquid tumors, especially lymphoma, you had results that were never seen before. It's the first time, so now it's on the market since 2 years. It's the first time that someone talks about a cure for cancer. It's really it's a cure. Like the trials, after 3 years, over 80% of the patients were cancer-free. Especially in lymphoma, it's just really astonishing. And so that's some of the companies in the space. Allogene is actually working with Cellectis. It's founded by the founder is the guy from Kite Pharma, was sold like 12 billion to Gilead, and he's going back into it. Novartis is really big. It was the first company that brought a CAR-T product on the market. Yale is the guys from Juno Therapeutics, which was the other really big company sold to Celgene, and they're really big too. And Adaptimmune is in the UK and also big into cell therapy. And the big challenge for cell therapy is you have one challenge is making it work for solid tumors, not only liquid, and that's very tricky because your cells need to access inside the tumor, and it's very, very tricky. And two is most of the cell therapy are using the patient's own cells. And so this means you need to take the cells of the patient and re-inject again, and this is it's not really efficient from a logistic point of view. And so Allogene with Cellectis, what they're working on is taking cells from a donor and then making a cell bank, and then they can ship it to different patients. And so the treatment can already be ready. And theoretically, you can decrease the cost of production by a lot, because that's the main problem right now. These therapies cost, just the therapy alone costs like $360,000. Plus then administration hospital, it's like you're in the millions, which seems crazy, but I mean, you're curing someone from cancer. So you have to look into the whole value. And then what you have to look into is also how will the cost of goods decrease once we produce a lot. So same for monoclonal antibodies. When it came out, with Herceptin is really known, it's against breast cancer. It costed also in that range. But 10 years later, it decreased, and now monoclonal antibodies are, with biosimilars, is pretty much, it's really a low price. So trend number 3, going to food. I mentioned it, cultured meat. It's really hot at the moment. And you have the kind of cultured meat, which is really you take basically muscle stem cells, cow or tuna or whatever, and you grow it in a petri dish and then or in a fermenter, and then you basically produce meat, but without having the animal, and you have a water consumption reduction of over 90%, and also of cost, you can decrease the cost because you can simplify a lot the logistics. But right now it's still like 10 times more expensive than your beef, so it will take some time, but it's coming. I mean, they're already able to do a steak, and you can do some crazy things afterwards. Like you can, Finless Foods, they're working on these like crazy expensive tuna, which you could then produce in a lab, and so you could have the best quality tuna, but produced in Paris. Or Memphis Meats, you can produce like Kobe beef, kind of synthetically. Well, that's 10, 20 years vision, but it's really exciting. Okay, number 4 is about microbiome. I mean, I guess you're familiar with it. Basically, all the bacteria and microorganisms that we have in our gut and on our skin, and how it's basically the last organ that we discovered. Which was in the late 90s, really late 90s, early 2000s. And it's crazy how many applications we find with that, and the impact of microbiome on everything, on cancer, on our immune system, on even mental diseases, on food, on so much, and it's really discovered. If you look into the number of publications with microbiome, it's like insane. You have a curve that is like that. But the big challenge right now in the industry is that it's been 10 years that you have companies, but no one has really shown efficacy. So really shown that, I've tested it on 100 patients, and these patients were cured or were saved or had a positive outcome on a certain disease. So that's really what's coming this year, next year. And here are some examples. Seventure is the biggest investor in the space. It's a French company, actually. And they are only investing in microbiome all over the world, but only invest in microbiome. Enterome is one of the biggest French biotech company in microbiome, and Eligo is a very cool startup, also in Paris, and doing really cool stuff. And actually, France is really, really big for microbiome. It's one of the top three. It's basically, if Denmark is really big, France, and then the US as well. All right, trend number 5, talking about biofuels. It's something that was, since the 2000s, there was a little hype about biofuels. Every company basically almost went bust or died. And it sounds very easy in theory, like, oh, you make a GMO microalgae or GMO bacteria, and then it will produce your fuel or your oil or your gas. And then you just need to make it big enough, and then it's worth it. But it's actually much more complicated than that. And the big problem is making it on a big scale. And so Global Bioenergy is actually a French company that are over 10 years old, and actually we're the most successful biofuel company in Europe, if not even globally. And they have a partnership with Audi. They're doing really cool stuff, actually, biogas, and I think now they're producing into over 10,000 liters bioreactors, and starting to be really interesting and starting to have a lot of potential. So it's a cool company, but still, it's not like they are competing directly with the gas you have. So there's still some work to do, but they're getting close to it. All right, trend number 6 is DNA synthesis. I mean, you're all using it in your lab probably. And so you have a lot of providers, typically Asian providers of DNA synthesis. It's mostly chemical synthesis. And there's 2 big things. I mean, Twist, I think some of you are already using it, but they have this really like high-speed DNA synthesis, and they can do a lot and really well done and with a good user interface. It's a typical example of where the software is mixing with biotech as well to do something really cool, and the company is worth over billions. It's based in San Francisco, actually founded by a French woman, but based there, and it's cool. And DNAscript is a Paris-based company. If you look in SynBio startup, for me, it's one of the top 3 SynBio startups in Europe. The team is just super, super solid. What they're doing, they're executing super fast, and what they're doing is enzymatic DNA synthesis. And so what it allows is they can do kind of a compact DNA synthesis machine that you put on your desk or on your bench or next to your hospital bed on the hospital floor, and you can start producing promoters, or you can produce some kind of little DNA segments and then apply directly into personalized medicine or into whatever you need. So they're doing it for COVID right now. When you want to test, you need some pieces of DNA, and so they're helping on that. And in anywhere where speed matters, you cannot wait 1 week for the DNA to come from somewhere. So you need something ready, and that's where they're working. And they're hiring a lot. So if you're looking into it, check them out. Trend number 7, so basically optimizing strains for bioproduction. So that's the whole trend of biofoundries, which is Ginkgo and Zymergen as the big ones. Ginkgo is in Boston, Zymergen is in the Valley. And what they're doing is really this like kind of automated process to take, like you want to produce X into a bacteria, and they will just optimize everything, optimize the yield, find the optimal sequence, and everything super automated with software, everything, and then they give you really the strain and even the product afterwards. And initially, it was a bit of a dream, and kind of was still a big vision, but the execution was a bit lacking. Now, I mean, it's really solid companies, have hundreds of employees, and it's really big. In Europe right now, there's not yet that much, surprisingly. A lot of people are working on doing a European Ginkgo, but it's not yet there. All right, so number 8, that's also immunotherapies. So it's similar to CAR-T, but that's based on antibodies. And the basic concept is using monoclonal antibodies and to exploit the immune system of the patient. So instead of attacking directly the cancer, you are helping the immune system fight the cancer. And this has shown to work brilliantly. And so you have the PD-1, PD-L1 inhibitors. BMS is a big player in it. And yeah, it changed the game in a lot of cancer. And same, it's as big of a breakthrough as CAR-T. And then you have a European company, just looked it up, iTeos. It's in Belgium, I believe, and they raised over 100 million rounds just early this year to develop a compound. Really promising. And the last trend, what I mentioned with Steve Jobs, really merging biology and digital, and that's coming really big. It's actually one of the fields that I'm looking a lot into for my next company. And here, 2 examples. Synthace is a company in London, so almost 100 employees, trying to do the operating system for the lab to really automate your cell therapy, automate whatever, and we're taking it step by, like making it automatic and driven by software. And Asimov, they're doing kind of the software to program your cell. So if you do like kind of imagine a logic board for your computer, and they're trying to do the same thing for cell, where you can basically do your whole bioprocess and your whole cascade and engineer that on software and then put it into the cell. Asimov is from the MIT in Boston or Cambridge, and Synthace is in London. So yeah, so overall, 9 trends. I tried to show you that it's pretty broad, but still healthcare is a big part. But it's not only healthcare, but it's broad. A lot of application, a lot of things happening, super exciting stuff getting developed, super exciting companies working on that. And so I think it's a really good time to be in industry. Now the question is, how do you get one of these trends? So first, before telling you how, one big question is, what kind of jobs can you get in these companies, or in general in the biotech industry? So I think it's a bit disturbing. You have a lot of options, or it seems like there's a lot of options, but actually, if you boil it down, there's not that many options. Here's the 6 I listed. Basically, academic research, like you're doing a postdoc and then trying to get an assistant professor, associate professor, or position into one of the research lab. Very tricky. I think you know it well, but I like this number. It's basically 10% of people who do a PhD in postdoc find a job in academia. So this means 9 out of 10 of people who are here will not be in academia afterwards. So that's just the reality of research. There's not enough jobs for everyone. So and there's probably maybe too many people doing PhD. I don't know, but this means that you have to find a job elsewhere where your skills can be used. And so the other one is industry research, typically working for a big pharma, one of these companies. But it can be tricky. There's not that many jobs in it, especially in big pharma. Most of them don't hire. Most of them already fired most of their researcher, and they just take the research and buy companies to take the research. But in biotech, you can still find some jobs. And then if you stay in the scientist, you can have scientific consulting, where everything goes from patents to research strategy to kind of being a like deployed scientist or research scientist. So you have a lot of companies like that, like Alcimed in this direction, which can be a very good school as well. That's the 3-1 if you want to kind of stay in science. And then one common thing as well, a bit what I did is going into kind of mixing science and business / marketing / whatever else that is non-science. And there you have typically 3 big areas, which is one is this kind of strategy consulting, so typically going to BCG, McKinsey, or the likes, and helping companies with the strategic decision, market access, pipeline development, R&D programs, kind of on a strategic level. Communication can be media or in general company communication. There's quite a lot of things happening there, but it can be also kind of corporate kind of communication marketing. I would put that all into communication. And then business is really more the sales part of the business, where you are selling typically you're working for a service company or lab equipment provider in the biotech field who is selling to biotech companies, and you're selling a very technical product, and usually for price points of like 10,000 euro and above. And so you need someone who has a very deep expertise to understand what the client needs and to be able to sell better. And so that's also a typical view. For these three parts, usually some kind of business experience is helpful, especially when you come from a PhD. And so the ideal way to get into that is to finish your PhD and then do an MBA somewhere at a good school in France, HEC, INSEAD, LSE, whatever. And then you get access to these jobs more easily. But you can always do it via your PhD by figuring out and getting into somewhere. You can do more masters, you can do internships to get experience and then getting hired. There's many ways to get, and I'm happy to expand on that. All right, and now I have 4 advices for you. I will not tell you exactly what to do, but more higher level advices, which I think work really well. One is start very early. Yesterday is the best. It looks, and I've seen so many PhD and postdoc doing that mistake. They're like, oh yeah, but I still have 4 years. Like that's so much time. I will start searching for a job 6 months before the end of my PhD. That's enough. I can tell you it's not enough. And the more you start early, the better you're prepared, and the more chance you have to find something good. And all of that takes time. 2, network. Develop your network. I mean, it's amazing that you're coming to a conference like that. It's really where you can meet people, talk to people. Don't be afraid. Just reach out to people, talk to them. I have a good example. I've talked to a guy here in Berlin. He's in his 2nd year of PhD, and he already received 3 job offers because the guy just networked. He talked to people. People like his profile and already wanted to hire him. And he said, no, I want to finish my PhD. But that's very different compared to someone who is 6 months from finishing and has no idea where he or she will work. 3, be curious and read a lot. It's the best. So not only the biotech, whatever, but get this context that I mentioned. Go check websites of companies. Go check LinkedIn profiles of people. Just be curious and see who is doing what, trying to understand, trying to do your own map of who is doing what, and this will help you in so many ways. And not only to know the company and find a job, it helps you then to connect the dots. It helps you to, when you're talking, when you're networking, you know what people are talking about when you're listening to a conference. If you're listening to my talk and you already know kind of the basics, you can go much deeper. So it's something that has an impact everywhere, and it's very helpful. It's a bit like when you do a PhD, reading papers and knowing really what's going on in the field is just super valuable. It's very hard to do, and it's not not necessarily the most exciting thing, but if you prioritize the value it takes, I think it's definitely worth doing it. Actually, that's how we started BioTech. The dean of my university told in the first day of class, say, be curious, read a lot. She literally said that. And with my co-founder, we applied it too much. So we tried to read so much that we got so frustrated on how you could read about it, and we decided to fix the solution. But it was a very good advice. And advice number 4, I would spend time on your career. Not only on your science. Science is important, getting papers is important, but it's not the only thing. And to be honest with you, science is less important than you think. So whether you are publishing in the impact factor 18 or 14, it will not change that much. And especially if you want to go out of academia, it will really not matter much. What will matter much more, especially if you want to go into business, much more. No one will ask the impact factor of your papers. I mean, we don't really care. But what is really important is, are you sociable? Can you talk with people? Can you network with people? Do you know what you're talking about? Do you know the industry? Did you go out of your lab? Do you have a network? Do you know business people? Are you good at selling? Can you manage a team? These skills, and this is so important. And it's hard I was similar as well as an engineer. We believe in the data and the science, and we try to be as rational, and we think that people skill is only for people doing marketing, but it's really not true. And that's, if you look into American scientists are so good at selling and soft skills in general, and still really good in science and really good at soft skills, and that it's a very good combination. So yeah, spend the time. It is something that needs time. So if you start early and you spend time, say, I don't know, spend 2 hours per month or 1 hour per week on it. But if you do that for 3 years, it will make a huge difference at the end. And also, the time it's something that builds up over time. So the earlier you start, the better, because you cannot replace 3 years within 3 months. It's not the same. It's not because you spend 100 hours in 3 months that you get the same result as 100 hours in 3 years. All right, here just quick resources for your PhD. So I think LinkedIn is just really good, especially if you want to work in industry, but also in academia. So definitely create a LinkedIn account, start playing with it, add people from the institute, add people you meet, add people, reach out to people. It's just super powerful. I'm using it a lot. BioTech, obviously, I would highly recommend you to subscribe or to read. Even if you don't read everything in details, just, reading it 10 minutes per week makes a huge difference. At least you know a bit the headlines, some companies, you have an idea, and over time you can build an understanding and you can continue doing it. And then YouTube conferences, it's amazing. I mean, just an online YouTube and then conference. I do that a lot. I'm actually watching conferences from the US, from Europe, and I prefer actually that than sometimes than going. The content is amazing, and you can do that anywhere. You can do that on your MacBook in your sofa. I mean, it's cool stuff being there on an uncomfortable chair. And there's so much content out there. If you want to know, it's really easy to find it. We have a YouTube channel, BioTech. You can check out the YouTube channel of SynBioBeta. There's a lot of YouTube content about the biotech industry, and it's really good. SynBioBeta, I forgot, but it's kind of the equivalent for BioTech, but only for SynBio, and it's global. But so it's quite a lot US-centric, but it's also good just to know what's happening. About BioTechno, I think what you guys are doing it's super good. I think it's like going into a community where you can find people who have the same challenge and share and learn from them. It's just great. And then connect with the speakers, connect with people. If you want the equivalent for the biotech industry in France, it's France Biotech, and they're also doing a great job. They have events sometimes. It's a bit more for industry than for academics, but you never know. You can find a way to, if you really want to go, you can find a way to get in. And they have also resources. Actually, one graph I showed, the map, they have this like annual report, so you know what is happening in the industry, what are the companies, and they have a directory. You can just look through it. It's really helpful. And the map, I mentioned it. Here Q&A, I will go after that on it. Some of the questions we could discuss. And just want to say thanks. Thanks for listening, and feel free if you have any questions.
So we used to address all the question in the end in order to reply now to your question, Philip. Sorry before that I let you without me, but I was like, I can't activate my microphone, but it's okay. So Perfect. Already we have many questions from the audience, so if you're ready, we're starting directly.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So, what is the current?
I hope I was not too long.
No, you were perfect on timing, I would say.
Okay.
So, yeah, first question is from Agnieszka. What is the current impact of COVID-19 on the biotech? Would we face a crisis as well? I guess for young researchers, she means who's trying to.
Yeah, it's a complex question. So you can look at it on different levels. So as an individual, typically as a PhD student, right now the companies will hire less, especially in the next year. It will be trickier because the companies get a bit less financing. Mm-hmm. Some of the clinical trials are delayed, so they get less. But I think if you look on a 5-year scale, COVID will probably be beneficiary to the industry because it makes people realize and government realize that healthcare is important. And it's probably a bit more important than apps and just lifestyle thing. And if you look where the money goes in France, Europe, so much money invested into lifestyle digital apps versus healthcare that I think that it will be balanced a bit differently. So yeah. And also one thing about biotech industry is also it's generally companies that don't sell anything. So they don't have revenues. So their revenues is not really impacted. The only thing that can be impacted by is if the investor don't invest. But most of the investors in Europe have quite a lot of money. So far I've talked to a lot of biotech companies, and so far I think the impact was pretty much neutral, if not positive, for some companies who are in the anti-infective space or DNA Script, as I mentioned, they have a project on COVID. So let's see. No one really knows. Let's see.
Yeah, totally agree. We need to wait the statistics to figure out.
Yeah.
So next question from Annabella: what sources and website do you use to your everyday life in order to get informed about biotech, medtech, food tech, and all these relative topics?
So some of the ones I mentioned, if you can load the slide, the slide number, I don't know, 27, 26.
Yeah.
If you go back to, this one. I actually use that every day or every week. I'm reading also for US biotech, I'm reading Fierce Biotech. You have Stat News, that is good. But it's basically Fierce Biotech, I'm reading SynBioBeta, I'm reading La Biotech. And that's my biotech sources. Before, when I was active, I was reading a bit more things, and I was also sourcing content and stuff. But right now, that's what I would do. And as a user, that's what I would do.
I would say also.
And I mean, if you want to know about the science, like Science Daily or New Scientist is a good sources, or just the Nature is a very good blog. You've got a lot of resources out there.
Okay, something from USA maybe more addressed because they have like comparing Europe to USA, it's like we're too small there.
Yeah. So Fierce Biotech is mostly US. Fierce, Stats, Biospace, BioCentury, and Bioeconomy are the 5 big biotech websites in the US. And La Biotech, we have 200,000 readers, and Fierce Biotech is somewhere like double, 400,000 readers a month.
Okay, perfect. So next question coming from Thomas. He's asking, from the bureaucratic or financial point of view, do you recommend any specific country who would be more ideal to start a biotech startup?
So I would definitely say one of the countries which I mentioned where the biotech industry is quite established. So UK, France, Belgium, Netherlands, Germany, Switzerland, Austria, and Nordics, basically. But then, or in Ireland, but the difference between them is not like super significant. UK is a bit better at financing, but you have more people doing things, so there's more competition. France is really good for giving grants and giving like very early stage research, like from BPI France. It's kind of a fiscal paradise for R&D. everything has the kind of advantages, but the most important is to know why you want to do it and doing it and finding the right people to do it with, and then you can do it.
Okay, so definitely team first priority for you.
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
I'm looking all over Europe. Like for me personally, for the second company, I'm not looking at a specific country where to build it. So the company will be somewhere in Europe. The lab will be probably at one spot, but the rest of the team will be somewhere, all spread it out across Europe. And I would say that's the most optimal way, actually. If you get the best people from all over Europe, it's much better to execute. And same for investors. Most investors invest all across Europe as well. Clients, I mean, it's a very global industry. So.
Nice. So next question, what skills are needed in order to be a founder of a company? Of course, the idea is a key point, but what else? And how much stressful is to make it work, to found it and make it successful? So you pass already from that process, so it's really nice to have your feedback.
So first of all, to get started, what is very important when you found a company is to be entrepreneurial. What it means is if you feel like building something on your own and you want to start things. And so this is not necessarily a company, but running an organization like BioTechno or starting an iGEM project or starting whatever project, it's a good sign that you want that. In you have this fire and you want that. And that's very, very important. And that's not if you're a scientist or not. Any one founding company needs that spirit. Then it's applied to doing the science or doing the business, but that's very important. And once you have that, then ideas are way less important than people think, especially in some industries. If you do a digital startup, ideas are worse. The saying is ideas are commodities. Basically, ideas are worth nothing. So if you want to build a vente privée or whatever company, digital company, ideas are worth nothing. In biotech, ideas are worth a bit more because you have science and you have IP, but still it's very, at least to my opinion and in the opinion of big investors like Sofinova, we tend to overvalue science and ID and IP over people. And that brings me to the last point, that people is the most important thing in the company, in any project, anywhere. People is the key. So find people which you would love to work with, who are bringing complementary skills, who have the same mindset, and that's the most important. So, but you just mentioned it, but I'm focusing only on the people. And once the people fit, then you can start talking about ideas, problems, IP, whatever. And especially in Europe, IP, there's too much IP out there. There's so many patents that no one uses because there's not enough good people to use them. And so I think the good people is the critical aspect.
Okay, really nice. We hope to be one of them maybe some years ago, but let's see. All people here, it's really interested for that.
And there was a question on stress, actually, I forgot to answer that point.
Yeah, sure.
So what is true? Building companies is extremely, extremely tough. It's one of the hardest things you can do in your career. And so the whole the social network and whatever movie, it looks easy and fun, and it is fun, but it's not easy at all, and it's really a lot of struggle. I mean, when I started and with 18 months, trying to survive, every second day I would wake up and be like, what the fuck am I doing? And the other day I'd be like, wow, that's amazing. And you have 3 months ahead. We were 3 months, 3 months of cash. You don't know. We were 3 months away from stopping everything. It's just a lot of stress, a lot of responsibility. Started the company, I was 22. I had no idea what I was doing. I was doing all the possible mistakes. So, it's a lot of stress, but then there's also a lot of reward. It's one of the most stimulating work you could probably do. You're always stimulated. You have a lot of challenges. You're learning a lot. One of my key focus in life or professional life is to learn. It's my learning curve. So that's why I love to build companies. You're hiring your own team. You work with your own team. You are finding investors. It's really this kind of collective effort as well. And then it's just in me, like it's the thing that I love to do, and I have a very it's just what fits me. Same as Elon Musk, you will not hire Elon Musk. Like he's just made for that.
So we can say that you are breathing for your project. So you are living for your project after one point. It's like part of you.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I think that means I love the thing that I'm doing, and I'm doing my job, my hobby. I think it's the definition of many people, and the key of the success most of the times.
Yeah, hobby and passion, for sure. You should be passionate about what usually scientists are. I mean, if you're not passionate about the biology or biology and you're doing a PhD, I think it's not a good sign.
Yeah, definitely. You're not surviving.
For any job, not just for building companies.
Totally agree. But I'm continuing the next question in order to have time to reply to everything. So the next question is, how saturated is the market with scientists? Are there more scientists looking for jobs than available job positions in biotech? So what is your opinion?
I would say yes. Yeah.
Okay.
A bit like in academia. There is more PhDs than jobs or postdocs than jobs in academia. A bit the same in industry research. What's always a bit tricky is it's kind of often demand, and a lot of scientists out of academia don't find a job in industry, but it's not because there's no job, it's that they're not qualified for it. And one big qualification is not just the sciences. Can you work with people? Do you know what a deadline is? Do you know how to manage a project? Do you know how to interact with people, working with people? Do you know the basics of what a project, what a budget is? And if you don't know that after your postdoc, it will be very complicated to find a job in industry. Unfortunately, it's something that is not really taught in academia. Besides, if you're in a really good lab or the PI thinks a bit more industrial, but there is ways to find it. So you can, if you're able to do a PhD or postdoc inside a company, that's amazing. But then you can also just talk with people, scientists in the industry, to learn from them. And again, goes to the network, goes to be curious and read. I'm sure you can train yourself just on, at least having the concepts just by watching YouTube. Then applying it is a bit different, but still, it's already, if you know what we're talking about, it's already much easier.
The next question is a bit related to that, so maybe you can give more feedback. How does startup earn money in the first stage without real products? From Alexander. So
I guess you're talking about biotech startups. So it's a very good question. So a biotech startup at the beginning is mostly financed by investors. Can be public investor, can be private investor. And so that's how the startup is financed. So typically what we call burning the cash. So it pays the people, the founders and the team, and then it tries to show value creation. And so value is not only sales. So if you drug, you show that your drug is very efficient or has very good results in animals or in phase 1, the drug has a certain value. What you have demonstrated has a value. And this value is not yet commercial because you cannot sell the drug before it's applied, but it has a value. And this value is seen by investors, and it's especially seen by pharma companies. Because pharma companies are always looking for new drugs to buy them. And so overall, especially for drug development companies, the business model of a drug development company is not, in biotech, is not to sell drugs. The business model of a biotech company doing drug development is to sell the whole company to a pharma. So what you're doing, you're taking a research from a lab, whatever, EGBMC, whatever, and you spin it out, you raise some money from investors, you develop the compound, preclinical, phase 1, phase 2, and then in phase 2, if you have good results, a big pharma will acquire you for 100, 200, 300 million, whatever. And then your investor, who have a chunk of your company, the value of the company will be higher than what they invested, and that's how they make what's called a return on investment. So that's the business model of biotech companies. In SynBio and in cultured meat, it's a bit different. You have some models where the market access, as we call it, is a bit faster. So for example, Twist, I think they probably sold DNA very early on. So they made revenues. They didn't make profits because they didn't make profits. They wanted to grow fast, but they made revenue. So at least they were selling something. Or if you look at the clean meat companies, so not cultured meat, but clean meats, they're also selling meat. Beyond Meat, for example, they're selling meats to supermarkets. If you look at Asimov, the company mentioned, the software company, they're selling their product to biotech companies, so they have revenues. So you have this whole aspect also of companies selling services, and then you're selling a service, so you're helping someone do something, and you get money for it.
Really nice. I think you reply really nicely to the question. Next question is I'm comparing also my knowledge in the system of Strasbourg, and I mean it's exactly like this as far as I had so. So next question coming from Anon. Do you see already a reverse of the trend favoring biotech, mainly for curing towards feeding and fueling due to the global warming, for example, in France or in Europe?
Yeah.
It was a long question.
That's a very good question. So I don't think it's a reversing, it's more addition. So if you look at 10 years ago, healthcare was maybe 80% of the biotech industry, and the rest was 20%. Maybe now it's 60 versus 40. But it doesn't mean that healthcare decreased. It's because the total market of biotech exploded. It's basically over time, it doubles every 5 years. So which means everything grows crazy. And so the feed is much bigger. The industrial biotech is much bigger, and healthcare is much bigger as well. And I think it will continue like this.
Okay. Next question is coming from that one, the thing that you mentioned at the beginning about the book that all lab biotech people used to read. So do you read some books specifically or recently that you really recommend for us to read to help us to increase our knowledge to biotech?
Yeah. So it's a good point. So I would split the answer into. There's two types of book that could be very helpful for everyone listening. One is really industry-related books. Here you have Genentech is probably the best. I mean, at least it's the best one I know and I've read. So Genentech, the beginning of biotech, you can find it on Amazon. One is very good, is the $1 billion molecule. It's the story of Vertex Pharmaceutical in Boston. Very good on drug development. You have the biography of Henry Termeer. I can write it here.
Yeah, you can share any information in the chat.
It's a guy who founded, or he was the CEO of Genzyme, the company Sanofi acquired. And this is in my list. I will read it next month. You have one called the Bio Revolution. It's from the founder of SynBio Beta. That's at least the four. And Craig Venter. You have a few books from Craig Venter. This is really good. It's a bit more like popularizing science, but it still gives a very good context of the impact of biotech. So I would say that's the 5 books. And then on the other aspect that is really important as well, you can learn a lot of soft skills from books. So you can learn about productivity. You can learn about management. You can learn about leadership. You can learn about company building. You can learn about finance. You can learn about communication. You can learn about emotional intelligence, whatever, about public speaking, whatever, by yourself, by reading a really good book. But for both of them, the hard part is not finding the books or knowing which books, is doing it, actually doing the reading, and then making your notes, out of your notes, extracting the value, working on it, improving, learning, because the reading part is just a very small part. I will post I have actually a blog post on that. I will not explain too much, but you have I will share it here.
That's great to share with us.
If you want. This is all the books I've read since 6 years, so you will have all of them. And then this is how I read books. You can read it, and you can try that.
Nice, thank you. For I don't remember we mentioned in the beginning that you have an active blog, and if people want to learn more about you, they can find all your information there.
Yeah. So the blog is not about biotech. It's mostly about my second hobby, which is productivity, life optimization, entrepreneurship. So if you're interested in that, check it out.
Perfect. So next question: do big pharma companies play a role in innovative research in biotech, especially in Europe?
Yes, a lot. I mean, in healthcare, in drugs development, big pharma are driving pretty much everything. The big nuance, which there is on it, is that they're not necessarily doing it in-house, like as inside the company. So what big pharma are doing a lot, which is called external R&D versus internal R&D, they are letting biotech companies do the early stage work until phase 2, and then the big pharma will acquire. So, for example, in Europe, you have only 3. Now you have actually only 3 biotech companies that have brought a product themselves on the market. Genmab I mentioned, Galapagos I mentioned, and Actelion. Only 3. All the others were acquired by a big pharma, or the big pharma would then sell the product on the market. Because big pharma are just so good at manufacturing, at selling, reimbursement. It's so complex, and they're really good at it. So they're driving innovation. It's not because you're not doing it that you're not driving it. A bit like a car company, Renault is not doing that much R&D, but they are bringing in a lot of parts from different suppliers. So is Renault innovating? Not necessarily directly, but as a whole, they're still innovating because they're bringing all the parts together. So it's a bit the same in pharma or in biotech in general. And then in the meat space and in industrial biotech, it's a bit different, but it's still in the similar trends. You have the massive chemistry companies who are also buying biotech companies. You have, it's similar.
Okay, thank you for your reply. Next question coming from Enzi. What is the importance of reputation of the business school or from an MBA or of a regular management master?
I mean, obviously it is important, and probably the best school you can get, the best, but I don't think it's as important as we tend to think, or as the business school is selling it. And what is much more important is what you do out of it, and what are you doing when you are there. I remember, and it's something that I applied a lot at BioTech, saying my dean, the director of the uni, that was on the 3rd year, I think, or 4th year, anyway, or whatever, and she said, we are bringing you only 50% of the value. The other 50%, you have to do it yourself. So you have to read, you have to network, you have to figure it out. And that's very atypical for university or for school. And I think that's the key thing. Just don't expect too much from a school. Even if you're INSEAD, MBA INSEAD, which is supposed to be the best in Europe and one of the best in the world. I mean, still, if you just go to INSEAD and you don't do much and you don't exploit it, it will be way less good than going to, I don't know, EM Lyon or something like this. So it's really about what are you doing out of it, and it's more about that.
I guess it would be tough if you go to a master program and there are people there at career advisors to help you and you don't take profit of them. I mean, it's difficult to fail, but yeah.
But for example, I went to BU, so I mean, it's a good university, but I was missing half of the classes because there was always biotech events. So I was always networking and talking with people. And I learned so much more by networking than going to the class.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you learn on the field, as they used to say. Okay. So next question, how to obtain the initial budget to run a business? I think this is coming back to the previous topic of comparing to startup or any kind of business, I guess.
Yeah, so maybe let's take it, if we narrow it down to, say, starting a business out of academic research. It's a tricky question, but you have a few tools available. Let's say for France, you have the tech transfer offices who can give you some budgets. In Alsace or Grand Est, you have Connectus, which is pretty good. So they can help you. You can have BPI France who can help you. You have, I don't remember the exact name of the thing.
Yeah, is also an incubator here, which is helping startups to incubate their ideas.
But there's a BPI France, they have a contest, national contest, and they give you something like 200,000 euros, something.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, then you have professional investors coming in. But the beginning is a bit tricky. And the tricky part at the beginning, it's not the same for everyone. I mean, say if you have already started 1 or 2 companies, you're in a very different position to raise money. So again, you can take the same idea. If you plug a different person on it, it will be a very different company. And so that's also a big sign of how ideas are less important than we think. And that's in the US, it's even more extreme. They just take a patent from Harvard or MIT, and they put the top guy on it who built $1 billion company, and they just give him like 100 million from scratch, like without any data, nothing, and say, okay, just explore it and figure out something.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Next question coming from Annabella. Which biotech people do you admire? So again.
That's a good question. In biotech, actually, if you look into Henry Termier, is really impressive guy. So there's a biography, it's really impressive. Mm-hmm. Herbert Boyer is the co-founder of Genentech, really impressive guy. Stéphane Bancel, the guy for the CEO of Moderna, the mRNA company I mentioned. And I happen to know him quite well, and he's really, really impressive guy. In Europe, André Schulika, it's a really cool guy, the CEO of Cellectis. And a few others. Okay. Antoine Papianic is a really cool guy. He's the biggest investor in France, and one of the biggest in Europe, from Sophie Nova Partners. You can check it out. And we have videos of all of them, I think, on our YouTube channel. So just check it out, see what they say. But they're really good. Really good people.
Nice. Next question from Amalia. What would you say is the biggest challenge to start your own company?
I would say it's similar to what I answered. I think the biggest challenge when you start a company is really your team. So finding people who are amazing, thinking like you, which you can imagine working 10 years together. And so today, my biggest challenge is that I'm focusing mostly on the people. I'm not focusing on the science or the technology. Of course, I'm preparing it, but I'm approaching it from the people angle. And once I have the people, then I go really finding the problem in the product. Mm-hmm. And I think it's like actually Stefan from Moderna told me that he compared real estate with startups, and in real estate, the saying is it's called location, and then the rest. So it means your property, the location is 3 times more important at least than anything else in the flat. And in the business world or in startups as well, he was saying it's people. So your people is 3 times more important at least than anything else. But people tend to look at it as one aspect and spend as much time on each aspect. But at least that's what I'm doing, and so far it works well. Mm-hmm. But nice. We will talk in 3 or 5 years, and let's see.
Okay. Also another question, which is, can you recommend books for soft skills?
Yeah.
For the soft skills side. Yeah.
Okay, so that's on the books. I can highly just check out the link I posted. There's basically there's a list of everything I've read and also my favorite books, and some of them is about soft skills. Out of my mind, if I have 3 out of my mind, there's one that I like a lot. It's called the Productivity Project, and it's really about how to be more productive, but in life in general, not just like which tools you're using. If you're using Firefox or Chrome, we don't give a shit. But really about how do you optimize your sleep, your exercise, what do you drink, do you drink too much alcohol, and then also really how do you define your task, how do you prioritize your life, how do you plan, how do you manage distractions, how do you manage your emails, whatever. That's kind of all in one. It's super well done. So that's one. 2 for soft skills. The book on public speaking is very good. It's called TED, Public Speaking something. So it's the CEO of TED, who basically they're sharing everything they've learned about public speaking over 20 years, and they just publish it, and it's super well done. And it's not just being on stage. Public speaking is about everything. So when you present in your lab, it's public speaking. When you talk to your boss, it's public speaking. Everything is, once you talk to someone else, it's public speaking. And so how can you get your message better across? And that's something that scientists usually struggle quite a lot with. And it's not true that you have to be a business guy to sell and to talk well. It's not true. Look at Craig Venter, he talks. Look at George Church. Look at some of the best scientists are also very good at talking. And it's not a coincidence. And the third one, I have to check the list actually. This one is good. It's called the compound effect. And it's all about how the decision you make, how will it bring value over your life. So a lot of things that I mentioned, like if you decide to read 1 hour per week instead of doing something else, what is the value of that? And then really looking into compounded value. So how is the value you get on the first week addition to the second week, to the third week, to the fourth week? And I would say in networking and career, compounded value is key. And if just check it out. Yeah.
Okay, I would like to inform also that we are running out of time, so I will quickly ask 2-3 more questions because we need to let you free. Instead, if you have time to keep you a bit longer.
I have to run as well.
Okay, so we're finishing. Okay, so I would like to ask the last question. So do you have any advices when someone is looking for internships to transition gradually from academia to industry, where he can find that kind of information? We have specifically a question for a person who is searching something like that in Paris, but do you have any sites or recommendation how to look for it?
You mean, sorry, I didn't get the beginning. Looking for job position?
For internships. It's like when you want to do short-term contracts in a company.
Yeah. So for internships, you have a few websites doing. So LEM has a good website for pharma, but I don't know how many research jobs they have on it. I know in German-speaking region, you have Job Vector, and I think they have a lot of internships on it. The rest in France, I'm not sure. La BioTech, I know we had some internships. But otherwise, the best way to find an internship is not to wait for an offer. I mean, find a company that you love, find the person in the company that you would love to work for, and then just send an email. And that's how I find all my internship, and that's usually the best way to do it. Yeah. Or through your network, ask people like, and can they introduce you to someone? Find a way that's much more efficient than waiting for the website to publish.
Okay. I'm lasting some polls, so in case if you see something, it's not something bad. So I would like, yeah, it's a small survey for us to have feedback for the attendance. So I would like to let you free, but would you like to give us a last comment about today's talk?
Yeah, just saying thanks. Thanks for the lot of questions. It's cool. I don't know how many people were connected, but it sounds like there's a.
We were 100 something before. Now some people get out of the room, but yeah.
Oh, really nice. No, really cool. Thanks for staying until the end. Thanks for the questions. Thanks for being interested. Thanks for having me. And yeah, check out all the links I said. Shoot me an email if you like. There's an email in the slides or on LinkedIn or whatever. And just stay in touch. And biotech world is very small, so I think we will see each other at some point in the next years.
Thank you very much for accepting to be here with us and sharing all your knowledge. It was really helpful and insightful for us. So
thanks. See you. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
So for all the attendees, I would like also to thank our team, the BioTechno grantees team, who had helped and bring all the speakers that you are attending the webinars here. And please follow us on our social media in order to be more updated about the next events we're coming. We have constant updates, or you can click on the booklet. And we're happy to see you at the next webinar, which is following the next days. So have a great evening. Bye.